The Heat were back home on Monday night, taking on the Houston Rockets, and once again, they followed a familiar pattern of spreading the ball on offense and shooting well from the perimeter and finding a way to outlast one of the best defenses in the NBA. We'll break down who stepped up, if we've seen the beginning of a permanent change to the starting lineup, and much more on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com, and joining me as always, it's longtime NBA reporter David Ramil. However you're tuning in, YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Recording this late Monday night after the Heat beat the Rockets 120-113. Tyler Herro led the Heat with 28 points. Bam Adebayo had 22 and 12. Miami got a bunch of big contributions from up and down the roster. We are going to hand out credit cookies later on, plus some news on Kyle Lowry's injury. But let's start, David, with your biggest takeaway from the game.
I think it was just a really solid overall effort after a couple tough losses to close out that road trip. Miami found their identity, particularly in offense, but I think it was a good balance on defense as well. They did a pretty good job of limiting a nice team that struggles a bit away from home in Houston. They played very well at home, not so well on the road, but they kind of figured it out of late. But they managed to limit some of their best players, Alperen Sengun, Jalen Green, who had been kind of on a tear of late. They kind of really put the clamps on them and did a really good job of limiting that two-man game and found their own comfortable two-man game between Bam and Duncan Robinson. That was really effective. That was like the bones of their offense all night. They lost Kyle Lowry, who we mentioned again earlier. They lost him to a hit injury, and they were kind of without their leading playmaker, but they still went to Duncan or Tyler or Bam or even Nikola Jovic, who we'll definitely be talking about. And they found a nice mix of guys making plays for others. I keep saying it, and I feel like I just keep doing this over and over again, but I think it bears repeating that Miami's depth, as it has over the last 4 seasons with Jimmy Butler and this kind of established hierarchy on the roster, you now have so much depth here, and it continues to be one of Miami's, if not Miami's, greatest strength this season, and we saw it tonight as well.
Let's get even more specific. Depth with playmaking and skill, right? Especially with Nikola Jovic starting and playing well. There is so much skill now with this team that Kyle Lowry, you're only, not just your starting point guard, the only point guard on the roster, can get injured after 16 and a half minutes and exit the game and not come back. And he has 1 assist in the entire game. And yet as a team, you could still have 30 assists on 41 made field goals. That's remarkable. You mentioned the Duncan Robinson pick and roll with Bam Adebayo. That was a huge part of their offense. Also a big part of their offense, apparently, is the Nikola Jovic to Tyler Herro triple handoff game. Who knew that was a thing until tonight? We debuted that one against the Rockets. So there is so much ball handling. There is so much ball skills on this team that you can withstand the loss of your only point guard on the roster. And Jaime can have 4 assists. Nikola Jovic can have 6. Bam can have 3. Tyler Herro can have 3. Kevin Love can have 4. Josh Richardson can have 2. Duncan Robinson can tie his career high with 7 assists in this game. I asked Eric Spoelstra about that after the game, and I was like, hey, are you just more comfortable sort of rolling out these non-traditional lineups without a true point guard out there? And, he kind of said some Spoism things, but then mentioned that this team, and this is my big takeaway from the game, David, this team had a meeting Monday morning before the game, before shoot around, and said, hey, we got to tighten the screws on what it is that we can do offensively, because this was not a good offensive team over these last 5 games. I know they're on the road without Jimmy Butler for a lot of that, but their last 5 games, they had an offensive rating of 109.8. That is not good. Tonight, they had an offensive rating of 125 points every 100 possessions. That's an awesome rating against a very good Houston Rockets team that came into or defense that came into the game ranked 4th in defensive rating in the league. And the Heat blew the doors off of them. And I went to the Rockets locker room after the game, David, and we were talking with Fred VanVleet, and he said, like, hey, we being the Rockets, because it's Fred VanVleet, we scored 113 points. That's enough for us usually. But defensively, we just didn't have it. And he's like, I've been playing the Heat for a long time. He spent obviously most of his career in the Eastern Conference. I'm used to playing them 4 times a year. This is a team that doesn't let you slip. And that's basically what the Heat did tonight. I thought their ball movement was awesome. Their spacing, their player movement off the ball was great. And they got back to those things that make this offense good when they do those things. And even though this team can go 4 or 5 games of like an offensive slump, what makes this team unique to me is their ability to course correct and do it quickly. They had a meeting this morning, and then tonight they beat one of the best defenses in the NBA. That to me is a unique thing about this team.
I think they set the tone really early, especially with their three-point shooting. That makes things so much easier. And of course, Miami, one of the best, is still. I mean, I'm not sure if they're still the best three-point shooting team in the league, but they shot 42% tonight. They went 5 of 10 to start off that first quarter, and they looked really energized from beyond the perimeter. It seemed like all those shots were falling, and that kind of put, I think, a Houston defense without Dylan Brooks on their toes. They were kind of a step slower on defense than they normally are. And so I think that really helped Miami, because then from that point forward, they were finding ways to attack seams of the defense. Again, that pick and roll combination, or just multiple playmakers. Like if anybody has the ball in their hands and can make a play for somebody else, and you're able to knock those shots down with such a high percentage, your offense is going to be one of the best in the NBA. We saw that recipe for years. I'm not making the comparison, but we saw it for years in Golden State. Obviously, you pass the ball, you shoot well. Guess what? You're going to score a lot of points, and defense aren't going to be able to keep up with you. So I think that's the strength of Miami. It's been a really fun game to watch.
Houston does a really good job of taking stuff away at the rim. Guess how many shots the Heat had at the basket tonight? Just guess.
No, not many. It doesn't seem like many.
10? Six.
There we go.
Yeah, they had 6 shots at the basket. They took 40 attempts from the mid-range, 36 from three-point range. Usually, if you see a 40 from the mid-range, that's enough to be like, that's probably not a good process offensively. But because the Rockets do such a good job of taking things away at the basket, they do give up a lot of stuff in the mid-range. And that was sort of that was to me the interesting battleground in this, is if the Heat can just shoot well from the mid-range. Basically, if Bam and Tyler and Jaime can do their mid-range thing, then the Heat have a chance against what is one of the better defensive units in the league, because the one thing that they tend to give up is the one thing that Miami tends to be good at, which is making those mid-range shots. They made them at a 57.5% clip tonight, David. Very good, yes. And that was a lot of Tyler, and it was a lot of Bam, and it was a lot of Jaime, and it was a lot of Duncan. I mean, he wasn't doing it from the mid-range necessarily, but he was playmaking and getting guys to their spots like Bam, so into that foul line jumper. So I thought it worked. I mean, like you said, the three-point shooting, obviously, if you're shooting 42% from 3 and 57% from on the mid-range shots, nobody cares what you do at the rim.
Right.
You know?
Good point.
So that's kind of where it was at. Anything else on this game? Let's do the Kyle Lowry thing really quick. Just quick injury update. So he goes down with a hand injury. It's his left hand. On the very next play, he's going up to contest a shot at the basket, and something happens to his left hand. I couldn't really see it from my angle. I don't know if
TV
had.
I could see it.
What happened?
He slipped. He contested a Fred VanVleet shot at one end, and as it was kind of falling out of bounds, a cameraman had his leg extended there. Kyle slipped on that, or tripped on the leg, fell forward into the seats, and had his left hand kind of holding him up.
Yeah, he braced with his left hand, but he had hurt the left hand even before he fell, before he even braced it, because he's holding that left hand and that's why he sort of wobbles out of bounds. So he had hurt it on the contest. And then
I didn't see that much.
I did see the replay. And so he hurts it on the contest, and then he braces. So it was both things. Boom, boom. Neither of those were helping the left hand. Goes back down to the other end, wide open in the corner, because he's kind of late trailing the play. And then somebody passes him the ball. He has to catch it with only his right hand and then just pass it back with somebody else. I saw that and I was like, that's not good. Stoppage and play. He doesn't tell anybody, just runs right back to the locker room. Eric Spoelstra was like, okay. And then he has to put somebody else in there. So Spo, after the game, said, obviously, I was very concerned when he just walked away from the game and went into the locker room. But initial scans of the hand came back clean, according to Spo. Yeah. Obviously, he's going to undergo more testing, and they're going to monitor this thing. The Heat practice Tuesday afternoon. We should probably get an update on Kyle Lowry at that point. Did not talk to the media. He was quick to leave and probably get some treatment and some more work done on that hand. So I'm sure he's going to talk tomorrow, and we should have more of an update on Kyle Lowry. So TBD, the Heat played really well without Kyle Lowry tonight. They might have to keep doing it going forward. I guess we'll find out more on Tuesday. But how many credit cookies can somebody who shot 2 for 9 in a game really get? You'll find out after this.
Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's around years, obviously. We get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we're already doing right. Or maybe you finally organize one part of your home space and you want to tackle another. Or maybe you're just taking supplements every morning. Now you want to actually eat breakfast too. Well, therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. If you're thinking about speaking to a therapist, maybe it's something you've considered for a while, maybe it's a New Year's resolution. And if you want to talk to somebody, then BetterHelp absolutely can help you start that process. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time. I had a friend of mine who tried BetterHelp because I told him we were working together with them. He found a therapist. Their schedules were in conflict and were in conflict. And then all of a sudden, he found somebody else right away. He's been with that person ever since. Really enjoys the process. It's really helped him. And if you're in that same step right now where you're thinking of trying a therapist, well, BetterHelp can absolutely get you on that process. So celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today, and you can get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your podcast app. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel.
But by the way, the Heat did tweet out an update on Kyle Lowry. They said he had been diagnosed with a left hand sprain and is now listed as day-to-day. So that's the update officially from
the good old classic Miami Heat day-to-day. It could be day-to-day. It could be week-to-week. It could be month-to-month. Nobody really knows.
See you in March, Kyle.
See you in March. Yeah, see you. Has Kyle Lowry played his last game as a member of the Miami Heat?
Oh, no.
Not time for that segment.
Yeah. All right.
It's time for the tastiest segment in Locked On Heat. It's another Heat win. It's time to hand out some credit cookies. David, who's getting credit cookies today?
Well, it's a pretty well-rounded effort yet again in this win. Obviously, with them sharing the ball so much, I've got 6 players getting credit cookies. I start off with Jaime Jaquez, who had a nice double-digit scoring output with 1 credit cookie, 1 for Duncan Robinson, who struggled from the perimeter but made a lot of plays for others. Tyler, the leading scorer for the Heat, with 2. Bam, a good all-around game for him, also gets 2. Kevin Love with yet another impactful game off the bench for 2. He stepped in when Bam had foul trouble early in the first quarter, and Nikola Jovic as a starter, making plays, rebounding with strength, a man's rebound, as Eric Reed said on the broadcast, making plays. Unfortunately, the offense from his scoring perspective wasn't there, but an overall game for Nikola, maybe his best in the Heat uniform.
Not maybe. That was his best game in a Heat uniform. I don't care that he went 2 for 9. I really don't. I thought the shots were really good. I thought some of those 9 field goal attempts were sort of just missed tip-ins, so not real true field goal attempts.
Sure.
So it wasn't super inefficient for me, but 8 rebounds was so impressive for him. This is a guy who does not rebound the ball well. And I asked him after the game, I was like, how important is your physicality? How much of that is a focus, whether it's screening or it's rebounding and all these things? And he goes, it's the biggest focus that I have right now is just being physical out there. And it's the thing that stuck with me more than just, again, the box score is fine. Like it's sort of like it's almost a stacked, even though he didn't have double digits in any one category. 6 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Like he's everywhere on there. But to me, he was setting hard screens. And those were sort of triggering those dribble handoffs to Tyler Herro. He was battling for rebounds. He's saving balls out of bounds through traffic and knocking them back inbounds to his teammates. I thought his passing was really strong in this game. I thought his feel for the game was on display in a meaningful way, where he either gets the defensive rebound and tears it down, sprints up the court on the break, and either scores on his own or finds somebody else. He had one where he tried to hit him with the Euro step, and he ended up not making it. It was one of those misses. But I was like, go for it, man. I love the confidence. Like, try the Euro step. And I think a quiet thing, David, that was really helpful for Nico was not only starting, but just playing a full 10-minute run at the beginning of each half. This is a guy who's usually 1 minute here, 2 minutes there, playing in
Right.
spurts. But Spoel's like, here's 10 minutes in the first half, here's 10 minutes in the second half. It's sort of the Luke Babbitt 2.0. That was sort of his rotation pattern. But he was really good. And I think he really appreciated, I know that. I asked him after the game. I think he really appreciated getting that long run and kind of being able to flex a little bit. And we saw that.
Yeah, it was a really nice game from him. It seems like the Heat staff, as much as we have talked about, maybe they don't have faith in what he can do defensively, or maybe there were just too many concerns and he might not get any kind of consistent play time. Like, I think we have to keep that in mind. Like, I'm not tamping anybody's expectations at this point, but I still think that he's getting the bulk of these minutes, mostly because of injury to Caleb Martin and Jimmy Butler. Who knows if he'll continue
We
to
do have
play.
a question about that later on. Yeah.
That was a tease, Wes. You didn't have to
sorry.
make that. You broke the fourth wall there. In any case, I think he's getting the playing time, but he also made it known, not just in his post-game press conference or his scrum there, but also when he spoke to Bally Sports after the game. He mentioned that, they have the team, the coaching staff has made it very clear to him what it's going to take for him to earn minutes. That's playing with physicality, playing defense at a higher level, rebounding well. Like, that was a paramount concern for him, just something that he had to make sure that he focused on. And he was really active. You could see him pursuing the ball if it carried off the rim or off the glass. He was really active in a way that we have not seen from him. And he wasn't as concerned with his offense. He's like, you know what? The shot's going to fall. I'll take them and rhythm, etc. But he was making plays for others. He's playing defense at a high level, like deflections. Like, I didn't know that was something at his size. If he can get those hands up and he can recover and figure out the timing and be impactful on that end of the ball, I think Miami's got themselves another.
He had a couple of accidental deflections just because he's so big. There were times where the ball just knocked off his hands. He was like, "Oh, I touched the ball. I wasn't expecting it." But that's why you add size to your roster. And this is a team that is deficient in that area. And with him at 6'10", with the ball skills that he has, I don't want this to be Eric Spoelstra just wasn't playing him, and this is why you should have been playing Jovic earlier. I think you and I agree on this. He had developing to do. He had growth that needed to happen. This was not Nikola Jovic the way he even played at the beginning. I don't think he does this at the beginning of the year, even if you just threw him out there as a starter. He had to grow in certain areas, whether it was playing center in the G League to ramp up the physicality. This was a physical player. And that, again, it was the thing that stood out to me the most is that guy. We talk about Jaime Jaquez's physicality all the time, and wow, he's 22 and he's not really a rookie because he doesn't play like one and all these things. Jovic looked like an NBA player tonight. He was playing NBA basketball, physical basketball, putting his elbows into people, getting to the glass, being a big man, and playing alongside Bam Adebayo. Spo went so far as to say that it's dynamic when those two guys are on the court together, and I got to agree with that. So we'll do more Jovic later on. Can we talk about Kevin Love?
Yes.
Jesus, man. I cannot believe the Cavs just gave up on him. This was a franchise hero, a champion. He brought you a championship alongside LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, and you just bought him out. And the Heat got him for free. And he's not just a good player. He is an essential part of this rotation. He is a dynamic player. He changes the way they play when he's on the court, whether it's with the outlet passes or the dribble handoffs or the three-point shooting, the spacing. He busted Houston's switching defense tonight. Like, they weren't totally in gear, the Rockets, in terms of their switches. They were just a little bit off time. I think you mentioned that earlier, maybe a step slow. And that's all a veteran like Kevin Love needs. He's like, okay, you're a step slow. I've got all the openings now. And he's just going to bust that wall down. And that's what he did. I thought his assists, his playmaking were huge. Obviously going the 4 for 7 from the field for 15 points was helpful. I thought his rebounding was huge. He had some big tip-ins at the basket. Just an awesome game for Kevin Love. And I don't know if he's the greatest buyout guy ever, but this is like, I don't know that anybody could have expected this from him this season. This isn't new for him,
No, it's better than it was last year. And we talked about the vibes improving when he came into that locker room. And I think that was certainly something quantifiable throughout their playoff run when he wasn't getting that kind of playing time, and he was still able to be impactful in a positive way because he rallied everybody, because of his leadership, because of his experience, because he's just in general a good locker room guy that a lot of people feel comfortable talking to. But now he's having an on-court impact that's far greater than our expectation. I remember in our season preview, we debated whether or not he was just going to slide into the quote unquote Udonis Haslam role, where he wasn't going to be much of a player, but he was going to be a vocal leader in the locker room, etc. And maybe you'll get some rebounding and 3-point shooting from him. But he's been so much better. I've said it. I can't remember, weeks ago. It seems like he's found a fountain of youth again. Like, he is moving so much more effectively at his age this season than he was last year. And you would think it would be just the opposite. Older players don't get better.
No, but I think he's moving with more confidence. I think he understands Miami's defensive system.
Maybe.
He went through his first training camp with them this year. Like, he's got it. Like, he looks better defensively. So maybe he's just moving with more confidence. But who knows the reason why? Like you said, older players don't get better. They don't become more agile. So there's got to be a reason behind it. He was awesome.
As an aside, my wife saw him at Trader Joe's this past weekend.
And what was he buying? We should all buy whatever he's buying. And
yeah, she didn't look into his cart there, but it was after the loss in.
I bet it wasn't the frozen orange chicken. I bet you that's not what he's ordering or buying from Trader Joe's.
But they lost it. Was it Phoenix on Saturday and Sunday morning? He was back, so the team plane got in late Sunday morning, and then he's at Trader Joe's the next day. Like, that guy, what a consummate veteran, right? To just do his own shopping. I know he's got a wife and
did they get back Saturday morning?
No, I think they had a game Saturday night or whatever it was. The last game of the road trip.
Friday night. So they got back Saturday.
So Saturday, Saturday.
So it wasn't that heroic to get to
No. It was Saturday. It was Saturday morning. It was Saturday morning.
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the next day. I remember thinking to myself, I was like, "Are you sure? Like, they just got in that night." He must have gotten like 5 hours sleep. He's like, "Nope, got to go to TJ's, get something for the wife and kid." I mean, that's awesome. Good family man and good
family
team
man. Yeah, look at that. Heat culture, baby. Bam Adebayo had 10 points in the fourth quarter in this one. Tyler Herro led all Heat scores, I should say, with 28 points on 10 of 20 shooting, 5 of 10 from 3-point range, an efficient night, 50% from 2-point range and 50% from 3-point range for Tyler Herro. So credit cookies, well deserved all around. But we're moving on. Nikola Jovic. We spent a lot of time about what he did in this game. What does that mean for his minutes going forward? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular seasons, well, they're basically wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. And the app is so easy to use. So many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. You can find bets under the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays. And there's so much more to explore when you go to the app. But visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
Anthony Chang, the Miami Herald, he thinks the Dolphins are going to beat the Chiefs on Saturday.
Ooh, so do you.
3.5. I think so too. And I think the reporters, the media room was pretty split, 50-50 on the Dolphins' chances.
I'm going
Eric
with
Reed,
a lot of
confidence.
Yeah,
not as confident.
Yeah.
I'm naming names, baby.
Dolphins fans that have suffered through decades-long PTSD are like, no, we still got a chance through the tears.
Well, I'm thinking the parlay, if for the ultimate Dolphins optimism parlay, that's what we'll call it. You take the Dolphins, obviously, the 3.5. You can also take the money line, I guess, if you want to go that way. But you go maybe Dolphins money line and then the Steelers to beat the Bills, which would flip home field back to Miami for the next round, I believe.
That's the way to do it.
That's the ultimate Locked On Heat Dolphins optimism parlay on FanDuel.
Go into the playoffs with eyes wide shut, baby.
What's the promo code there again?
Locked On NBA.
What is it? Yeah, there it is. Locked On FanDuel.com/LockedOn. There you go. Thanks to everybody who sent in questions for our post-game show using the hashtag AskLOHeat on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram, Locked On Heat. Email us, lockedonheat@gmail.com. This question comes from Steve, who writes in, do you think Nico will continue to get minutes when Jimmy comes back? EJ Brooksy also says, have the Heat found their starting four? We can kind of tackle both of these questions, I suppose, in the same. I don't know. Let's just do them both. What do you think?
It's tough to say. I think
because also no Caleb in this game, and Haywood was just coming back from an injury. Sorry, I just wanted to add that context.
No. It's look, Jimmy's going to come back into the starting lineup, and the person who's going to lose minutes, is Jaime Jaquez, who's been the natural replacement for Jimmy in that starting lineup, and kind of Jimmy 2.0 when he comes off the bench when Jimmy's actually been out on the floor. So I don't think that's a problem. I think you could definitely start Nico alongside Jimmy. He's been quote unquote the perfect four next to Bam for quite some time now, at least conceptually, right? And so I can't see why he wouldn't get playing time. I think the offense moves better. Like maybe it was hyperbolic. I texted you. I said, you know what? I think he's earned a starting role. And if your concerns, well, let me backtrack. When we saw Duncan flourishing as a starter when Tyler was lost due to injury, a lot of our content was, the offense moves differently. The ball is moving. And it was this new version of Duncan Robinson, who also continues to space the floor at such a high level, but make plays for others. And now with Nikola out there, I think you're starting to see something like I mean, when was the last time you saw Miami run this many fast breaks with him and Jaime Jaquez, picking
he's the
up
guy
the
that he triggers him, man. Like he knows that's the part that makes him special. That's his value add to this team specifically. Defensively, he's not going to be a value add necessarily. His size is going to be helpful, but that's sort of like just be there, just be part of it. You don't need to be value add. You just need to be good enough to be on the floor. His value add is the transition stuff. And I thought he was really strong at that tonight.
Absolutely. I mean, there were a couple plays there where either he forced a turnover or snatched a rebound, and he's gone. He's not Haywood Highsmith who holds the ball for a second and looks, let me get it off to a ball handler. No.
He gets down the court, man, in like 5 steps.
Yeah. With his size and speed and again, the court vision, like he's seeing guys in a trailer. If there's somebody in the corner, he'll find a way to get them an open pass.
He hit Tyler Herro on like this backwards pass in the corner. Tyler Herro in the corner. And it was just such a high feel play. I'm like, how did you even know he was there? But he's got such good feel for the game. And what I really liked tonight from him too was the quick decision making. So I think when he's like, okay, he's gonna. What does Spo always say about Jaime? He eats up space. Well, with Jovic and this newfound physicality, he's kind of eating up that space, but he's doing it quick. He's decided, okay, this is either going to be a catch and shoot thing, or I'm going to put the ball on the floor if you give me a little bit of space, and I'm going to eat up that space. And I love that. I love that he's doing that. Defensively, he's been able to look. That's the thing about Nico against the Rockets, missing a few guys. They're not the most threatening offensive team. No. There's going to be matchups where Nikola Jovic is just going to be unplayable, I think, defensively. They kind of have to gimmick it up with a lot of zone with him, even though they did go to man to man with him tonight in this one a couple times. But there's going to be some matchups where it's going to be a concern, but he's trending in the right direction. And I think that's the point here. But in terms of whether or not he's the starting four or not, I don't really know. To me, when I see him get like what I was sort of joking at the Luke Babbitt thing earlier, but there's something to it, right? That there's a blueprint there that Spo has gone to before and that he's comfortable with where, hey, I can kind of go with one starting power forward for the beginning of each half and a different one. In this instance tonight, it was Haywood Highsmith for the second part of each half. And I'm going to just run my sets that way. But I don't know. When you have Jimmy come back, when you have Caleb come back, those are two guys that are obviously going to be part of the rotation. The Heat played 9 guys tonight. I think they'd be comfortable going with 9 most nights. That's typically what Spo has gone with this year. So who gets out? I think Highsmith could be out. And then who's the other one? It feels like, I mean, obviously you always, Kyle Lowry, if he has to miss time, there's an easy solution there, I suppose. But, it's tough. It's really tough. I don't know that you can go 10 deep.
Yes, I agree with you. I also think it might be a moot point because until the trade deadline potentially clears up some of that space, I don't think it's worth discussing because somebody's going to get hurt and there's always going to be somebody who's going to be missing time. And so it's going to create opportunities.
Great thing about the Miami Heat. Somebody's always injured.
Josh Richardson's going to have his day. Haywood Highsmith is going to have another big game too, et cetera. So you're always going to see somebody step up as players fall in and out of the lineup. So at this point in time, it's going to be a flexible 9 to 10 players that you can go to on any given night.
It's a great point. I think we're going to see him playing for a little bit here, but we'll see.
No update on Jimmy from Spo's press conference?
Nobody asked.
Okay. I guess he might have made it clear. Yeah, I mean, what else are you going to say, right? I mean, he's either going to be available.
Said it all. Bernie Lee said it all. He told Ira Munderman everything that we needed to know. I assume we'll get an update tomorrow after practice, and I'm sure we'll update all of our listeners with another podcast at that point. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on your podcast app. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel.